trouble with the DHSS is it's too complicated and it's very hard to get any information out of them.
We're trying to get a quart out of a pint pot.
One of the main problems the department has in dealing with the public is that the buildings weren't purpose-built.
Pathetic.
The trouble with the DHSS is that it's very impersonal and dehumanising.
The trouble with DHSS is, well, I'd say that one of the troubles is that everyone has their own view, and everyone is different. Whether you work for them or whether you're dependent on them. It's like anything you have a lot of contact with, you can always see things that need putting right. But with something like Social Security, where do you start? Especially as so many of the views are contradictory. Well, perhaps the place to begin is where most of the differences of opinion begin. And that is here. This is where the claimants sit. And the DHSS are over there. Separate. Divided. You might say, on the opposite side.
Can I help you?
We're going to look at DHSS from both sides of the counter to find out just how far they really are from the claimants. And it's with the claimants we'll start. What's it like being on the receiving end? Having to talk about personal problems, things most people would rather keep to themselves, and certainly not reveal to a stranger. What's it feel like coming to a DHSS office, especially if it's for the first time?
We're dealing with people who've come to the end of the road financially, and often they have to screw themselves up to come into our offices. And they're on edge, they're nervous, they're defensive.
It causes them deep personal grief and distress. And so that, and in fact, some people won't go near the office because they feel degraded.
When they do go to an office, what do they make of it? Liz England and her colleague Lynn Fife work in a community advice centre in the Nechells area of Birmingham. We brought them to Coventry, to an office they'd never seen before, and asked them to give us their first impressions.
This is good, isn't it? There's a bus stop here with 3 buses.
And it's so huge. I mean, that's the first thing about the place, really, that strikes us. Our huge buildings are really foreboding. They really actually put people off.
Well, yeah, still
It looks such a big place. I mean, Coventry's a big place. You could perhaps see it.
300,000 plus population. Same population as they've got in Trinidad.
How do you know that?
Oh, it's just one of those useless facts that I happen to know. Wait a minute now.
Is it really true?
Wait a minute now, wait a minute. Look.
This is not it. This is the tax department.
Taxes.
Well, that's handy. that's on eye level.
Wait a minute now.
Run, you've got your levels.
Look, I'll have to step behind you at this stage. What's this? Oh.
It actually looks like the entrance to Wakefield Jail. You got to Wakefield Jail.
The building is a bit grim.
No, it's very old, isn't it?
Lynn, there's a sign which says public toilets.
Supplementary benefits.
Wait a minute now. Social Security, ground floor. Supplementary benefits, first floor. So we have to go upstairs.
Is there a lift?
Let's walk. They couldn't. If you think about it, you couldn't have a very tall building and.
Well, I suppose it's something that is actually. It really is like an old Victorian hospice, isn't it?
Workhouse type building, isn't it? Or like an old factory. I wonder if it was a factory.
It looks a bit like an old factory. Oh my God.
Oh dear. Yes, the first thing I notice about it is
It's disgusting.
that it's hot and smoky.
There's no air.
I have in fact had a number of people say that that's one of the reasons they hate going.
The thing that I find awful about it is I can't see properly. Yeah, I mean, it's really dark and dingy. To be honest, I think if I'd got to come here and stand and wait and all this, I just don't think I would do it.
Well, people haven't really got any choice, that's the problem, isn't it?
In a sense, it's kind of different for us because we're fairly sort of young, but if I was pregnant, if I was elderly, if I was perhaps depressed because I'd lost my job or whatever, I would just think that something like this would make me feel 10 times worse.
Now, we've been rather unfair to this office. Plans are well underway to make considerable improvements to the waiting area. But Liz and Lynn's reactions are not untypical, and they do show how bad conditions can lead to bad feelings.
All this just confirms these feelings about themselves, inferiority, inadequacy, and the fact that they're actually doing something that they shouldn't really ought to be doing, which is absolute nonsense. And the staff can't be very happy working in this kind of situation.
It is a fact recognised by staff and management here that the building, as far as claimants, as far as supplementary benefit callers are concerned, are inadequate. Don't provide the right environment to come to a social security office, first of all. Stressful that must be for so many reasons. It's inevitable that a caller will wait for some time, and it's not the right environment in which to wait in this stressful condition.
Where changes have been made to offices, what is it that makes the right environment?
I think the first thing you had to do was get away with that institutional feel. The furniture screwed to the floor, the caricature that people carry into the office with them. They expect to find a certain low-level kind of service available to them in public offices. Now, we have to get rid of that, first of all. And in trying to get rid of that, we've gone for carpeting the public areas, using this furniture. That furniture has proved to be vandal-proof here. Nobody does anything to it in this one. We've gone for turnomatic machines, which, as you know, take people in order and stops all the kind of minor hassles that could happen out there in the public counter of people getting out of place in the queuing system. We've gone for pipe music. Not everybody's kettle of fish, but it adds to this general exercise in perhaps raising people's view of the public service.
A lot of claimants have commented on how nicer it is when they come into the office.
If you could just write it out just neatly by there for us.
We are creating a more comfortable environment here. We have encouraged successfully the staff to use their names to our claimants. We've built a completely new entrance, a completely new reception area where we know clear about 50% of our callers. We've completely refurbished and redesigned the upstairs waiting room. We've tried to make it pleasanter, more colourful. We've laid the carpet, we've bought new furniture. We've tried to look at privacy. We've cut out a lot of the sound that existed before, the noise of interviews. We've employed a local community artist and local youngsters on YTS to paint a mural on the wall. We are endeavouring to present a human face.
Well, my memories of DHSS offices and waiting rooms going back over a number of years are quite different from this, and this is a very welcome change.
It was a very barren, unwelcoming place, nothing down here at all. And the manager decided that something ought to be done, and in fact, it's a very pleasant area to come into now.
The manager decided that something ought to be done. Was he the only one?
We've got a committee. It sounds very civil servantish, that, but we have a small group of people, representative of each grade in the office and the trade union side, and various people put proposals to the committee, and they toss them around, decide what's feasible, what can be afforded.
In case anyone has this caricature in their head that everything is given reluctantly, most of the improvements that we have engendered have come from staff suggestion.
We were asked, because we worked here, we were asked what kind of improvements we think would be quite good for the reception area, and we put our own ideas forward, and that's what happened. We were given the money to go ahead and do these things to try and improve it.
And wouldn't it be wonderful if all the problems stopped with turnomatics, comfortable seats and pipe music? The trouble is, they don't. Attitudes don't change for a start. Despite improvements, old habits and impressions still remain.
A bit smelly.
Smelly? Smelly of what?
Where? Everything. All the drunks and everything here. Terrible.
So it's still a place people hate coming to?
Aye.
Well, if people don't like coming to the office, why not take the office to them? The social security system could confuse almost anyone. But for groups like the Asian community in Birmingham, there is an additional problem. Because some don't find English easy to understand, they feel completely ill-informed and isolated.
Their problems are that first, they are not listened to carefully. They have a difficulty of explaining themselves. They need time to explain things. That much time is not there with the DHS employees.
But the DHSS in Birmingham are making the time, coming to this temple every fortnight.
We come ourselves to the temple, sit with our friends in the community, with the Asian community, talk to them in their own language. It makes them feel that they're getting this advice from someone who cares for them, someone who knows them, someone who understands them.
डॉक्टर की रिपोर्ट के बाद खराब हो गई हो तो आप जल्दी सोशल सिक्योरिटी ऑफिस को लिख दें ताकि डॉक्टर फिर आए और उसको बड़ा रेट का अटेंडेंस अलाउंस मिले।
और जो अटेंडेंस अलाउंस के लिए आप अपील करना चाहते हैं तो आपने अपील की थी?
After the talk, there's a chance for private counselling on any social security problem. For these people, it's a service that's valued highly.
ਇਹ ਆਈਡੀਆ ਤਾਂ ਬਹੁਤ ਚੰਗਾ ਤੁਹਾਡਾ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਸ਼ੁਰੂ ਕੀਤਾ ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਅਨਪੜ੍ਹ ਲੋਕ ਹੈ ਜਾਂ ਨਹੀਂ ਜਾਣਦੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਵਾਸਤੇ ਬਹੁਤ ਅੱਛਾ ਹੈ ਕਿਸੇ ਇੱਕ ਦੂਜੇ ਨੂੰ ਪੁੱਛਣ ਸੁਣਨ ਤੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਪਤਾ ਲੱਗ ਸਕਦਾ I think it's a very great.
The knowledge of the other community languages, you can't beat that. It's beautiful.
The Asian community is tightly knit, and that makes it comparatively easy to reach. But what of other sections of society, perhaps equally nervous of approaching DHSS, but with no common interests to bring them together? How can they be reached?
DHSS free phone, can I help you?
Free phone is one way of telling the public what they want to know. In Birmingham, they get around 50 calls an hour. It's successful because it costs the caller nothing, offers information on any and every subject, and allows them to stay completely anonymous.
Because of attendance allowance. That's right, yeah.
What are her earnings?
The trouble is, anonymity doesn't appeal to everyone. There are those who prefer the human touch, personal contact. And some people hate phones, or can't get to one, and wouldn't know what to ask if they called anyway. How about them?
I just spotted it as I walked past, really, and it seemed to me, it was handy if you've got a query walking past. It just seemed to me handy to be able to drop down there and ask the expert.
Yeah, because I retired on the 7th of the 11th.
That's right, so you've got to get your claim in before the 7th of February.
Yes, I think it's a very good idea. You don't have to queue, and the people are very approachable when they're just in a shopping centre like this.
I wanted a new pair of glasses, and well, I couldn't go down to Tyburn Road. I've got quite a little way to go from Sutton down to Tyburn Road, and I thought, well, I'll see if I can get any help from these people. I've worked all my life, paid all my insurance. So I thought, well, I might as well see if I can get anything.
I'll let you know.
I want a new pen.
That's it, yeah?
Yes. Okay, thank you very much.
Pleasure. I'd say generally people are far more relaxed and they appreciate the informal atmosphere that we've got here rather than the more formal atmosphere of the office. Plus the fact that they don't have to wait as long and we can see them fairly quickly here. And we get more general queries because usually at work it tends to be specific whereas these can be absolutely anything at all. It'll save you having to
Most
do
people
it,
don't normally get the chance to make casual general inquiries like these, yet they can be so useful.
Right.
You can only claim a benefit if you realise that there is a benefit available, that you may be entitled to it.
We find a lot of people are concerned that because they don't know the right questions to ask, they don't get the right answers.
Communication. Communication between clients, between the public and the department is poor.
So what I'll do now is I'll...
Another way to improve communications that's being tried is through education, giving information before it's needed. This session is taking place in a school with a group in their final term.
Is if you don't get one about 3 weeks before you leave school, get in touch with your social security office and tell
In
them
Scotland, they're on the radio.
My guests this morning from the DHSS are Marion Devine and Wilma MacDonald, and we'll be meeting them very shortly.
Hello, Marion. Nice to see you again. Hello, Wilma. Nice to see you. Thanks for coming.
As an outsider from the DHSS, I honestly think they're trying very hard to change an image which, rightly or wrongly, they've been saddled with for an awful long time. And I think this is the right way to go about it.
I would like to hear what the supplementary benefit people have to say about this.
All right. Wilma, what have you got to say about that?
Doherty. Hello, yes, it's a Jimmy Mac programme here. You have a question for our guest this morning.
Something wrong with you, but Mrs. Smith, I'll leave that up.
Is it beside you?
The mere fact that you have this vast listening audience makes it a more viable proposition, let's face it. We're getting to many more people than we could on a one-to-one basis.
Next on the line, Jessie Doherty. Hello, Jessie.
Good morning.
Good morning to you. What can we do for you?
Now, can you help me at all?
I hope so.
I am looking after my father-in-law. We gave up our own home 2 years ago to look after his mother.
What we have proved here is that it's possible to bring people out from behind the counter and bring them up front with the public. And in trying to improve this image, which is what the DHSS is obviously trying to do, the more they do that, the more successful they'll be.
But that's not a final thing. I mean, a year, 2 years from then, you can then decide you want to retire.
Oh, I see. I can change my
You
mind.
can change your mind and notify your local office.
Notify your local office, which sounds fair enough. But the trouble is, all the good advice given outside the office generally ends up back in it, where someone has to deal with it. Yet the old work won't have gone away.
Well, they try to be helpful. Well, they always seem to be overworked.
The number of people currently receiving supplementary benefit from this office is 23,000. This office has 1,100 callers a week.
I'd be surprised if a lot of managers didn't say that they were understaffed or that their staff were working under great pressure.
The work is basically labour intensive still. You can't necessarily do more with the same number of people simply by making your organisation more efficient.
The people behind the desk, you need to watch their workload and how much pressure they're under. I mean, it would be very interesting, for example, to know how many conversations they're actually expected to have in a day. Because it's my experience, and I certainly don't talk to as many people as the officers on the desk have to talk to, that unless you're absolutely superhuman, it's very, very difficult to maintain a sympathetic, professional, impartial, reassuring, interviewing manner.
But given the fact that you are hard pushed, I would still stand, and I think all of the folk in this office would stand on the fact that the use you make of those finite resources can be quite marked in the service to the public field. I mean, if you have 12 people on the counter with the wrong attitudes, it's a damn sight different from 12 people on the counter, the same 12 with the right attitudes.
The right attitudes, which is what every office can offer, even when physical improvements have yet to be made, like at Coventry.
We said to ourselves, why are we here? What are our difficulties? When I say we, I mean all the staff, all the management at its different levels. What are our problems? How are we going to tackle them?
They produced a detailed report which suggested how they'd like to improve their service to the public. Some were short-term physical changes that could be tried in spite of the building. But until major changes improved the waiting area, they reckoned the best they could do was reduce the time spent in it, to speed up the service.
I think that there have been changes. A number of the problems that existed, particularly in reception, have been streamlined. We've seen some development of management techniques to streamline the decision-making process.
Service to the public just isn't having, may I use the word, a glossy reception. It's what happens behind the scenes. How quickly do we deal with postal correspondence? How do we answer the telephone?
Of the 4 sections, we dealt with, going on for 560 review cases, 172 new cases. We had 160 single payment requests. We cleared 162 of them. We had post of nearly 3,000. And we had 7 pieces of post outstanding at the end of the month. When you look at figures like that, the amount of work that is coming out and the amount of work that we are churning out, to say that the odd case goes wrong, it's a drop in the ocean. It shouldn't go wrong, and we strive to make sure that it doesn't go wrong. But unfortunately, there are odd occasions.
If the section's work is up to date, I find that 75% of the people go happily. They don't sort of demand for a counter payment. They keep on getting the same answers from the section when they phone up and they say, the payment is going out, and the next day later, they come in and the payment still hasn't gone out. That's when they get annoyed.
When somebody comes to you and you offer a service, the bottom line for that is that you deliver the service. We are here not simply as bureaucrats who handle pieces of paper. These pieces of paper, if they're not handled correctly, will manifest themselves in the door outside as people who are disgruntled by our supposed service to the public.
On his way in, this was a disgruntled member of the public. His personal problems already made him tense and argumentative. Now he was angry because there seemed to be a delay over payments he was depending on.
Started qualifying for it.
He admitted later that if he hadn't been helped today, he'd probably have lost his head.
I probably lost the head. Let's be honest. Because that's 4 weeks now.
An unpleasant incident was avoided because of a sympathetic hearing and promise that action would take place. Not all interviews finish so successfully.
Often, a person's perception of our handling of their claim is based on whether we say yes or no. You're a smashing office if the adjudication officer says yes to a single payment, but you're a lousy office if you say no.
If they've come about something where there isn't going to be an easy answer, or if there's not going to be an answer that pleases them, they could well feel pretty frustrated because they've come all that way and they still haven't got it sorted out, or they still haven't got something to their satisfaction. So I think that is obviously going to raise tensions.
They always think it's us personally making the decisions on their claim, and they say things like, I'll wait for you outside tonight and miss, and, I'll get you when I'm out, or something like that, or I'll come through the screens. Is that the one
those screens again. Are they to be a permanent feature? Are the differences between the public and the department so great they can never be overcome? Is it worth the department trying to improve their service to the public?
I know that the department has done a lot in terms of trying to get at the general public, but there's no point in kidding ourselves that this attitude will change overnight. Where you have areas of vast recession with people on benefit for long periods of time, you can't possibly hope to change their attitude quickly.
As long as you don't get into the habit of looking at a case paper as a case paper and look at it as a person who's relying on you.
It's a philosophy. It's something that has to go around the building. It has to be in the atmosphere, and it will get into the staff as well. And there's no question of they're willing to take it on. They're not unwilling. They're far from it. They're very willing to take it on.
And so to the benefits buses. Social security officers on wheels, if you like,
Of all the attempts to improve the service to the public, these must be the most visible. Clear signs that the department is becoming more outward-looking, trying to make help and information easier to come by. But just as important is how the public is received, the personal touch, giving the service they want, not the one they've come to expect. If people see the department is taking trouble, perhaps they'll come to see the system isn't unapproachable, that it's human after all.
How can we help you? The more we can see and hear the human face, the human voice of the DHSS, then I think the better it is for everybody.